This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'm calling to order the meeting of the Ad hoc Grant Search Committee for October 7th at 1 o'clock. And we have Kate and myself here as our current members. Scott is our town administrator. He's an ex officio member, so he'll be joining in most likely. And we have two potential interested people that we've heard about that have reached out, said that they might be interested in hearing what we do. So welcome, Pam Kanicki and Bruce Bowman. Nice to have you. Pam, do you prefer Pam or Pamela? Sorry.
I prefer Pam, thank you.
Pam is okay? Yeah, okay, good. All right. And then we have a guest today, Chief Fasoli, our fire chief. So let me just start with one thing, Chief. I know you have to run fairly quickly, do you? Or
Yeah, I have a fire drill at 1:45 at the school.
okay, all right. Well, let me just pull up if I can. I don't see anybody else out there in terms of open time for the public. So we'll skip over that, and I will go back and we'll take a look at the minutes from the last meeting, which was, let's see, on September 20th. Kate is our note taker. She's a great speed writer on minutes. So thanks, Kate, for doing these as usual. And I'll just put them up here and I'll send them around, or they'll be posted on the MyTownGov. But it'll really be Kate and I, since we are the ones that were here for the meeting. But this will give you all a little bit of an idea, Pam and Bruce, of some of the ideas that we'd be talking about over time. So Senior Center has gotten a couple of grants recently. I'll just do this as we're talking. We did not get the Bruin Historical Grant. This was to try and do some repointing of the bricks on the outside of the old town hall. There's a lot of the mortar that's falling out of there, and it wouldn't have been the entire thing. It would have been the lower sections of it. And we got an invite to apply, and we were among, I believe, 17 that applied, but we were like number 7 in the final doing. We didn't get quite what shall I say, the scoring, I guess, that we would want, because we don't have an active use for that town hall right now. As you know, it has got the police station in it, but they were really looking for something as a community economic anchor. So someday, if the town hall would turn into a theater venue or something like that, more of a public place to go to place, I think we'd have a leg up. But they said, if the grant opens up again, feel free to apply. So we'll keep an eye on it. Firefighter grant, I know, Chief, you're going to talk about it too, but we had put in through the committee, we had worked with a former fire chief in Southwick to help us put together the firefighter grant program. One was to purchase a new pumper tanker, and then also to get more breathing apparatus. And those have been awarded since July, and they ended at the end of September, and we got neither of them. The pumper tanker would have been close to 700,000, and the other one was, I think, around maybe 250 or something. So that was kind of fell apart, but we will try again. They open up again very soon, so we're not gonna give up. Community compact, these were just ones that we get through the state that are kind of rolling grants, and Scott is going to reapply for these. We were awarded them, but nothing ever happened in the transition between Ed and Scott. So we can reapply. One of them is a cybersecurity training grant for our staff at Town Hall. And then an ADA accessibility one. This is pretty much of our town buildings. And so these are ones that we'll be looking at again. And if Scott comes on, he may tell us. He may have already put in the application. I'm not sure. MVP Municipal Vulnerability Planning Grant. This, I think, is opening up as in November. And so there's a couple of these grants. We'll get to a chart in a minute, but a couple of these grants, you put in an expression of interest, hence your EOI first, and then you get a little bit of feedback, and they say, yeah, we think it's a good idea. It's worth your time to go ahead and fill out the full application. And then there's a separate application date. So I think the EOI on this one is coming up in November. However,
No, I think it has to be are you talking about the
this is the
municipal
EOI.
vulnerability? It has to be submitted by November 1st.
Okay, but this is the change here, Kate, is that this is the planning grant one, and we already did the planning grant part, so we are eligible now for the action grant.
Got it.
So that's
I'll
the
look it
one
up.
I think we just have to keep an eye on. So we'll have to this is what we did, but we now can qualify for something else. Lots of stuff with safe routes to school. You may know the sidewalk in front of the cemetery that was done through them. We've got a big project en route right now with Mass DOT that will put in new sidewalks from Route 10 to Gun Road Extension. So that right-hand sidewalk in front of the post office that is basically a path with telephone poles in the middle of it is not very conducive to promoting kids to walk or bike to school. So we've got about a $1.2 million effort underway. Mass DOT has been working on some design. I haven't heard from them lately, but I'm sure we'll be back in on that. Mass Trails, that's the one we usually use for the Greenway updates, all the design and construction. That'll be coming up soon. We've had very good luck with them. And then the One Stop for Growth that will be coming out probably in early, well, midwinter, I'd say. There's one too where we put out they put out an expression of interest, and that is really going to be the one that is for construction related things, we hope. So this is One Stop for Growth, combines about 8 or 10 programs at the state level that you put in one application, and they circulate it around to the various grant programs within state to see what really might fit what program. So instead of putting in many applications, this is a one-stop, as it's named, program now. And then lastly, we talked about our Southampton's turning 250. We're a little bit late in our planning, but we're trying to get focusing on that. So that's kind of what we talked about at our last meeting. So, Kate, could I have a motion to approve these minutes?
A motion to approve the minutes from September 30th.
All right, I'll second it. All in favor, Kate and I? Aye. All right, so hopefully we'll have a committee soon that is a little longer than bigger than two people. But anyway, that'll get us that approved. So before we jump into some other things, Chief, you came on, you had some information for us. So I'd like to give the floor to you to fill us in on a couple things that you're working on. And you had mentioned too, just to clarify for these folks, for the Assistance to Firefighters grant. So in addition to the tanker pumper and the breathing apparatus that the grant committee had actually submitted on behalf of the fire department, you had done one on your own. So you might just fill us in on that one for last year, and then things that you're working on or new things that you've heard about for the upcoming Assistance to Firefighters grant program. So go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so last Monday I went to a grant workshop for the AFG grant, and the spokesperson there said that last year they got grants of requested $3.8 billion. $1 billion was for vehicles only.
Yeah, this is a federal grant, by the way.
Right. They awarded 324 million was the grant that they awarded total. So I asked him about resubmitting the grant this year. He said yes. And I'm going to rewrite the second part of that grant was for Scott Air Packs, our breathing, self-contained breathing apparatus. I'm going to reword it to eliminate the bottles because I have plenty of bottles. And he thought that was a good idea because, you know, we're asking for less, which they appreciate. Two of the grants I'm working on right now, I had already submitted EMPG grant with MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management. That's $2,700. This year I'm going for a 5 gas meter. That should be announced fairly soon because that closed already. So they should start announcing those, that grant pretty quick. And
Could you say what that was for again? Sorry.
That is the EMPG grant through MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management.
Right.
$2,700 our town is qualified for. So I put in for a 5 gas meter. Basically, the meter will be able to read, the CO and low oxygen levels in a house or building. And this
Great.
one here is a special one where it will do hydrogen cyanide.
Okay.
Basically, what that is, after a fire, you go in a building to do rehab. This will tell you if it's safe to be, if you still have to be on air or
Perfect.
not.
That's
Uh,
great. So we don't have any of that on hand now?
we have we have 2 4 gas meters on our trucks now.
Okay.
One is more a special meter
Yeah.
that we don't have.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
and
Thanks.
then the second grant I'm working on is through the Department of Fire Service. It's a firefighter equipment safety grant. Last year we got 15,500. We go for the same amount this year. It goes on population. And so last year I got the 9 bottles and a RIT pack. A RIT pack is a specialty bottle kit that you would go into a fire if a firefighter inside is having an issue with his pack. You would transfer him over to this pack to get him out of the building safely. So this year I am going for some vehicle stabilization stuff. If a car accident, the car ends up on its roof or on its side. Currently, we have no way to stabilize the car from falling over while we're trying to get the patient out or the people in the car out. So that's what I'm going for this year. The other grant that you were just talking about was the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant. That is through FEMA. That is also a national award. I went for it last year. I'll go for it again this year. I didn't get it last year. That is basically getting smoke detectors for the elderly and doing life safety inspections at their residence. So what we do with those is we go into a house, and if they don't have up-to-date detectors, we can install them.
Mm-hmm. How much did you apply for last year? What was the value of that? Do you remember?
Well, that was
Oh, that's okay. I don't think it was that big a grant, but
I don't have it right in front of me. It was for 50 smoke detectors. So, and those are, I don't remember how much they were. I think they were like $30 a piece, something like
yeah,
that.
that's
So
fine.
it wasn't a whole lot of money.
Yeah, but that was a federal grant too, though.
Yes, that's part of that AFG.
AFG one, right? Okay, okay, good. Yeah, so you're going to try and apply for that again, and that should open up. I think both of these should open up soon. The tanker
Yeah,
pumper
when
one
I
and this,
went to the
right?
webinar, he said he thought it would be by the end of this month that they should be open.
Okay.
So
Great. So there's usually a time where they open up the grants. Sometimes they want this expression of interest first. Sometimes grant programs don't even ask for that. You just start in on the application. And then
right.
there's, obviously grant deadlines. But most of our grants, except for a few I can think of, most of our grants give us about a 3 month lead time, 2 to 3 months. So some are a little bit short, but that's when we end up meeting more frequently to hammer out details. But so basically, yeah, go ahead, Chief.
The AFG grant that we applied for last year, they are supposed to be sending out a turn down notice why they didn't accept our grant this year. And there's
Okay.
actually a webinar that they're having this week. I believe it's just going to be a basic one because they're not going to go over everybody's grant at that webinar.
Right.
So
That's an online thing?
yes, I sent
Great.
you, Chris, I sent you the email on that.
Okay.
And sent you the email on the slideshow from the
Perfect.
presentation I just went to.
Okay, that's great. That is great. I will look for that when we're done with the meeting here. That's great. Thank you very much on
So I
that.
just
Yeah, I
want
think
to come
it
on
would
and
it,
give an update on those.
yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, it's not very often that programs give you the feedback on your grant application. So the ones that do, we like to know, where we could be stronger. There's we do a lot of creative writing, I guess I would say, in terms of our narrative to make Southampton fit. Sometimes, we have a hard time with our grant programs, but we're kind of an odd community in that we have to take a look very closely at the eligibility for a lot of grants. There's many things that come out, but there's a lot of things that just aren't worth our time to apply for because we don't fit. And we fit population wise for a lot of them, just being a small rural community. So less than 7,000 population is usually the cutoff, and we're around that 6,100-ish. So that fits. But then when we get into income levels, we're not quite on the low end on the income level. We're perceived as a more wealthy community, I think, than we really are. And so it's very hard to qualify for some of the median income criteria, I guess, many grant programs want. And then we are really not, quite honestly, we are not a diverse community. So trying to pretend that we're falling into environmental justice criteria is really tough. We kind of latch ourselves onto Holyoke and East Hampton where we can, but our percentages are so low it doesn't give us a lot of extra points. Let's put it that way. So all of these grants have eligibility criteria, and then they tell us how they score them. So we try to write to convince them of our worthiness, but we've been somewhat successful. But we've had a dry spell for probably 6 months or so now, I'd say. So good, Chief. That's great news.
Except for Mass Trails, right? That was kind of recent.
Yep, no,
And
Mass
the
Trails.
and the senior center grants. I
Right,
don't know
those
if
are
that was awarded, but that
Correct.
was within the past 6 months.
Yep, those are the two that have come through since the beginning of the year. So
I'll take it.
Yep, no, exactly. I was just hoping for the bumper tanker myself, but that's okay. Got to try it a second time. It's can't always get everything the first time.
Mhm.
Good. All right, Chief. Anything
Hey,
I
else?
will say that there's an upcoming webinar. I was looking back into the MVP grant, and actually, Rick, you probably got to go, right? Or are you hanging around?
Just for a minute or two, he's probably got to leave. Yeah, he's got to get up to the school. He said, but yeah.
Right.
Well, I
Say
didn't want
that
to go off talking about a different grant if it, you needed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Rich. You got something else to say? Or-
No, that was it. That's all I had updates for. As soon as I hear anything on these grants, I'll let you know.
Great. No, that's good. And I think we'll work together on the assistance to firefighters ones, kind of like we did last time. And I think we will, you weren't fully in place last time, so that's why we reached out to the former fire chief from Southwick to help us out. But now that you're here, we'll work together and see what we can pull together. And I think a lot of it is just going to be updating a lot of the figures and statistics, that the
Right.
fire department has had over the past year,
That's
just to
what
make
they
that
said.
more
They
current.
said a lot of departments, that's what they do. They just basically copy and paste from the previous year.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
love that.
That makes life a lot easier, believe me.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, because there were a lot of questions. I mean, going through it for the first time, it's a lot of information. So great. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
We'll let you go, or you're welcome to stay as long as you want to.
No, I gotta get going. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming in. Perfect.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, Kate, you were saying.
So I was looking at the MVP. So two things about the MVP. It is November 1st for the action. It looks like it is November 1st for the expression of interest for the action grant.
Huh. Okay.
It says MVP expressions of interest due November 1st, but they're also having so it's MVP 2.0. Have we gone through the 2.0 process? We have not, right?
Well, we are an MVP community, so we've done the planning
there's
grant.
two, there's one, and then there's apparently, I remember them talking about this at some point, but it's MVP 2.0. It's like the newer iteration. Hold on, MVP 2.0. So I would
I'd have
like
to look at
to
that.
try. So MVP 2 is like maybe they had to get everybody signed up first, and then they were going to go back and have people update it. I think it allows people to revisit their priorities.
Mhm.
And see if it needed to be adjusted. I forget what we were trying to apply for. That wasn't really clearly explicitly stated on the our MVP plan, but I think it would be worth taking some time to figure out when we need to go through that process. And then because we had to like kind of bring in people from multiple different departments to review that whole plan, and it'd be
Right. No, that was the whole planning process. And it's parallel. It's a little bit similar. What's confusing, guys, is so MVP is very similar to what we're doing right now, which is the HMP, which is the Hazard Mitigation Plan update. So we have a hazard mitigation plan in place that expired probably a year and a half ago now. We were waiting and waiting for the grant. It's still okay that we've expired because they know we're working on it now. So there's actually been meetings that have been occurring with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission as our facilitator to update our hazard mitigation planning our planning document. And a lot of that is related, obviously, a lot of these things these days that are coming toward us are climate resilience related. So, it's hurricanes, it's bad snowstorms, it's flooding. Those are probably the three that would affect Southampton. Maybe wildfires a little bit on the mountain, perhaps. So there's a lot of that there that's there. We had updated the MVP plan, gosh, probably 4 years ago, I'd say. And then the HMP grant now is underway, and that shouldn't be very long before that's finalized to have a new updated hazard mitigation plan, which then allows us to apply for MEMA and FEMA grants. So without that being updated, we're kind of at a disadvantage. So I guess we'd have to look at that a little bit more closely, Kate, or I could check it out with the person who's facilitating our HMP grant update to see if there's something there.
It does say, it says in the, I'm looking at what's different about the MVP2 process, and it basically just says you don't have to go through the whole extensive plan again. The goal is guaranteed funding and also looking at social resilience, but then also trying to solicit community input. So it's more focused on it says, social resilience, community action, and it says focuses on translating priorities into action. So it provides guidance, tools, and guaranteed funding to complete a resilience project.
Guaranteed funding? That I've never heard of before.
I'm reading it from the mass.gov website. So it says there's a planning process so it says before formally beginning the MVP 2.0 process, awardees will coordinate a meeting with their MVP regional coordinator to kick off the process and proceed with the selection of hiring of a primary vendor, whatever that means. So this looks very different than it did last year.
Yeah, no. I tell you what, I know the name of our state coordinator person. Let me reach out to that person and see what what they're talking about
the
there.
seed project. So this is kind of cool. So it says a seed project is a project selected by the core team. So the core people that you identify as your same thing that we did last time. It says communities will receive $50,000 of guaranteed funding to complete a seed project with no local match required.
Okay.
So there's a list of example seed projects.
Right. I'll tell you what, why don't you want to just send that link around to all of us?
I
Kate?
will, I will, after this, I'll put together, because there's different, I'm bouncing between a couple different handouts, but I think it would be helpful to kind of familiarize ourselves with what the requirements are. Because $50,000 of guaranteed funding is much easier than writing an application.
Well, for real, and with no match required. That's our usual challenge too, that we don't have to put up any funds. And again, is this a deadline for expression of interest or application by November 1?
This is for MVP 2. This is, hold on, let me go back to, that's the MVP Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. And there's a webinar on October 22nd from 10:30 to 11:30. Of course, I think I have a staff.
And an application due November 1st. That really doesn't.
It says fiscal year 26 MVP action grant EOI is now live. Please submit by Friday, November 1st for detailed feedback on your project area.
Okay.
It says it's not mandatory, but it is highly encouraged.
Right. Okay. Well, that's where we are. We are at the action grant level for sure. But I think what I need to do then is just figuring out, because there's so much overlap between the MVP and the HMP, if they're coming up with different priorities as they're doing the hazard mitigation update now, maybe there's something they've identified for flooding or something that would be worth trying to do a project on. So, okay, I will put that on a top of my agenda to try and research a little bit more with Randall and everybody that's involved in doing the update on that. They just had a meeting last week.
It'd be nice to kind of align that process. Like if we have to go through like the 2.0 process, I feel like that's like the perfect thing to do would be align it with the hazard mitigation process. Like I almost feel like there's a lot of overlap. Like
Yeah, no, there is. It's a very confusing one. So, okay, well, today's the 7th. We've got until November 1. So, what did I say about a 2 to 3 month lead time? Usually, no, I take that back. Okay, well, we'll put that on our radar screen as a top one to at least investigate and be sure whether we should do it or whether it really doesn't apply
or
and something else.
look at what we prioritized before and
Yeah, I'll
see if there's anything worth throwing our hat in for. The other thing that you asked me to follow up on is to try to identify a grant source for the 250th
right.
anniversary party of Southampton.
Yep.
And my question to you is like the Mass Cultural Council has grants for things. The problem is you have to have a login to be able to access like their, and I didn't know if someone in Southampton had a login. I mean, I didn't want to create one on behalf of Southampton because I imagine that there already is one, but it's just
Yeah.
hard to go into their website. Like they have $2,500 for individuals.
Yeah.
One of their programs was closed because it was like open. I think it closed in May for like festivals, like they have or like outdoor cultural events that encourage, the humanities, arts, science, things like that. So there is funding available. You just can't see all of the information.
Yeah. Okay. There's not a lot of money to give out. I've talked to Lucy about it. She's on the committee, Lucy Dalton.
Yeah.
And last year we got a total, I think, of $6,700 for the town. And that was given out to various, from library to COA to the Hampshire Regional to, I'm forgetting what, but many different grants. They're actually posted on our grant page on our website, both what they were given to last year. And so there's small amounts. There's, $500 here, $1,000 here, maybe at the most, so they can divvy up that 6,700 among, 10 or 15 organizations. So we don't know exactly what we would apply for yet anyway, since we're just getting this planning committee together. But I just wondered if there was anything special for towns doing the 250th, but I didn't.
I couldn't find anything specific to
couldn't
that,
either.
but this does say festivals and projects provide 1-year grants of $2,500 to fund activities that provide public benefit taking place between, and I'm not sure the date that you would pick for this event, but I mean, usually it's in August, right? So this would be July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. And
Yeah.
it's not open now. The last one closed in May, so I'm guessing that's when it closes. Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, it says complete the application, which opens on April 2nd, 2024 and submitted by May 23rd.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Scott. Thanks.
Hi.
Yeah, no, I think so I know the historical society that basically celebrates Southampton, they put in for it. So they're the ones that kind of get the grant for that. So what I heard from Lucy was that they're still closing out the allocations of all the awards that they made last year. So they haven't got anything yet, but it's all got to be an online thing. So yeah, I'm one of the ones that's registered in town to get on these crazy online grant programs. So we'll have to see if we can access that. But Scott, we were just talking about Mass Cultural Council and whether we could grab some money toward their 250th anniversary, and just trying to keep an idea on any deadlines that are coming up. But that might be just a couple months out. There's nothing immediate on that anyway, but just to know we have it. And Scott, I don't know if you can. You missed a piece. We were just talking about the hazard mitigation plan update and the municipal vulnerability preparedness grants. Both of our plans, and just for, sorry, Pam and Bruce, all of our plans are also on the town website. So if you go into our homepage and just put in that little search button, just put in plans, and it should take you to the page where all of our plans are, from our open space and recreation plan, our master plan, All of them should be there, so you should find them there. But what I was saying, Scott, is that our MVP and our HMP grant plans are they overlap a lot. I mean, it's all climate resilience kinds of things, but it sounds like there is an MVP action grant, which we are eligible for because we are an MVP community. But Kate was finding something about an MVP 2.0, which allowed $50,000 to do a seed project. And so I didn't know how things were moving with the HMP grant update process, if some of the priorities that were being looked at had changed significantly from what was in the plan, or things being reordered in terms of storm or flood damage as likely, vulnerabilities for us, or can you just give us a little update on that? Oh, lost your, sorry, Scott, voice again. You may need your earbuds.
No earbuds this
Oh,
time.
there you go. Okay, got
Okay,
it.
good. Let me just move it a little closer.
Perfect.
There we go. So for the hazard mitigation plan, we're in the early stages. We've had 2 meetings so far where we're just really updating the old one and taking basically an inventory of everything.
Okay.
Just going through the old report with a fine-tooth comb and just, seeing what we have, what we don't have. There was a lot of errors in the previous one, or a lot of confusion. Like they had Council on Aging as a separate standalone facility than Town Hall. So how do we classify that? Things like that. The other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be having our first public meeting November 12th or 13th.
Okay.
It probably won't be a lot of people, but we're going to make it public and see if we can get some emails and some communications ahead of time.
Great.
Then Mimi, who's our representative from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, is going to put the draft report together, and then we're going to have to redistribute it to everybody again. So
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how things are going to rank or change at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this MVP 2.0 is apparently it's due on November 1st, which is not a whole lot of time, right, Kate? Is that what you said?
The expression of interest.
Expression of interest. Okay. All right. So
and I don't know, I think we would probably have to go through the 2.0 process. So maybe it's worth reaching out to them to just say,
Yeah.
okay, we haven't gone through this 2.0 process yet.
Yeah.
What is the next step? And would we be eligible to apply for this grant program if we were to develop a seed project, as part of our application? I don't even know where we are in that process.
Right. Yeah. No, I think since the MVP plan itself was done, it's not been picked up or done anything with at all that I'm aware of. There were no projects that ever came out of it. But we've got the name of the coordinator for our section of the state, so I can reach out and find out a little bit more about that. So I'll take that on my things to do and get that done in the next couple of days and see what's out there and just be sure whether we should do that, and then coordinate with the HMP planning folks to see if there's something that overlaps there. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Let's see what else. I had a couple more things to share here. I'm trying to think what they were. Just to bring along, just for information for Pam and Bruce. Overtime, and I sent this to Scott this morning. Scott gave me a good reason to share this. This was something that I had been trying to keep up on our end from the grant committee. The grant committee never existed until November of 21 or October of 21, something like that. So over time, various departments had done a little bit of trying to get their own grants. So police and fire, most notably, had been doing a fair amount on their own. But they were never recorded anywhere. So I was trying to capture those ourselves. So this is just a sample of what happened between November 21 and November 22, just to show you the kinds of things. So there are various training grants, getting AEDs, getting dispatcher training, ballistic vests, odds and ends of things that the police and fire department had applied for and gotten. So these are from, a couple years ago now, but just to show you Randall got some beaver control money for the highway department for a couple of culverts that were being impacted on Fulmer Road, I think. And then we had applied, this was it, Kate, right here. we had applied for the townwide culvert assessment.
Yeah.
That's what we were aiming for with the last MVP grant. Okay, that was our action project. We did not get it. Okay, but we ended up turning that around and working with Ty and Bond, who actually put in the application for us for the stormwater asset grant. And so that essentially is doing that same thing, the culvert assessment and inventory. That is underway and probably, I don't know, 80% done, I think, Scott, from what we've seen. So this actually did get done. So that is related to that, MVP program. So we've done that in a different way. We didn't go through MVP, but Mass Clean Water Trust did support that. So that one is something we can hang our hat on as having been a result, I think, of both MVP and HMP. So those are ones that were done by others other than the grant committee at the time. And then these are the ones that the grant committee had put forth. And we, like I said, we were doing fairly well. So this was our update, which is now the update we're working on, the 27,000 that we had put in to get our HMP plan updated. And it's got to be done before next year, which it will be, obviously. Some of these, by the way, have a cost sharing. So sometimes you can put in the amount of staff time that are involved in doing this. That counts rather than having to have cash. Others do require money. So that's always a challenge for us. Greenway Committee at the time, we had put in $300,000, had gotten that. We had put in, this was the RAISE grant. This was a federal grant. This was $1 million grant we had tried for. We didn't get that one. And then another one we had tried for in the same year. There were 2 applications that year for Mass Trails. They had extra money, so they wanted us to put in more money. Another application, so we did. And in the long run, they ended up not awarding it, but they converted some of our money even last time to our grant. So we ended up getting something out of it, even though it didn't come directly from this pot. Lines and signs with safe routes to schools. So this has happened a bit. This one actually wasn't awarded, but the one we do have, is the school feedback zone. You've seen that now. Anybody traveling Plummer Meadow? Excuse me. Let me get water. Right back.
I'm reading our old hazard mitigation plan and like remembering going through this process in 2021.
Yeah.
I'll share
again.
it around just so everyone can take a look at it.
I'm back around here. So yeah, so the feedback zone came about. Those are up, and then this is the one I mentioned that we're working on right now. So right here. Oops, that one. So that's what happened in 2022 pretty much. And I've just got to double check my figures on 23 and I'll get that off to Scott just for reference too. But since then, what sort of motivated me here is that Scott put out, as he's trying to understand what we've been doing for grants, he's put out a spreadsheet that he wants folks to basically update going forward. So Scott, you want to talk about this a little bit? What your goal is with this?
So the good news is we have a lot of grants. The bad news is we have a lot of grants. And tracking has been a little bit of a difficulty, especially with the reimbursable ones. So making sure that we submit the reimbursements, making sure that we get all the reimbursements back, that we don't run afoul of any guidelines that we're supposed to with the state or federal government. So I was hoping to do a shared file for the town. So on our network, everyone's going to be able to access it. That all the department heads are going to be required to put in, because we have a lot of smaller grants that we go through as well.
Right.
Like Joanna at the library just got a $2,500 micro grant for, I believe it was accessibility. And then she has, she received a $10,000 grant for lighting. But there's no central place that we can kind of check on the progress of them, or to make sure that, there's a due date involved, and, something that doesn't get forgotten. It just kind of puts everything together. So whether it's $1,000 grant or $1 million grant, it'd be good just to put it into here, update it, and make sure that, if we do have any transition, or, people leaving or coming in or out, that there's at least they can track it on a little bit of an easier basis.
Yeah, no, that's great. This will probably make it a whole lot easier putting it in an Excel, but that was the idea of the form that I had tried to do, just try to keep them all in one place. Because at the time, I think with so many, especially, well, fire, police, highway, and library, especially, and COA applying for their own grants, they were not necessarily known all the way up the chain. So um, the accountant at the time, even before Bradley, didn't necessarily get a copy of the grant contract to know, what to do, whether the reimbursement was, allowed or not allowed, and so forth. So we've tightened that up a lot, where everybody in their grant contracts are supposed to go to Bradley. So he's got a copy of them on file. But then what was happening is that obviously those that got them at their department levels, they were the ones that were putting in progress reports and whatever else. And nobody kind of had any visibility as to whether they were, abiding by all the rules of their grant program. So this will make it a little bit more clear in terms of, what's out there that we're working on. And especially as we close out grants, it'll be a lot easier, I think, to be sure that we, haven't left anything on the table. There's a couple that I know we have, because we didn't get all of our paperwork done in time, or there was some delay in, getting equipment or whatever it was. But these, as Scott said, most of the grants we get are reimbursable. So we get awarded $100,000, but you only get paid for what you turn in receipts on that are eligible, right? So, maybe we turn in receipts for $85,000 and we're done with the project. We haven't used the entire 100, perhaps, or something like that. But they're harder to keep track of because you don't see them show up on our books until you start billing for them. So it can get very confusing. So as much as I will say that I think this will be great going forward, Scott. So I think, I don't know that you want to convert everything I did into this, but it may be helpful for Bradley, just as he's trying to sort out what grants he has on his books that he can't identify. Hopefully the couple things I sent you will give him a little clue at least. But I think this will really help us going forward on it. So we can keep track of all these. And as much as the grant committee, I think was a new idea. Some towns that are a little bit more solvent, shall we say? I don't know, that don't have as many dollar challenges as we do. They're able to hire an actual grant, a grant writer, which I don't see us doing anytime soon, necessarily. But I think the grant committee, we've done a great job in pulling it together and trying to keep track of what's out there, and reaching out to the contacts at state levels that we need to do that with. So we've brought in actually a fair amount of money since the grant committee itself has been in existence. However, as Scott said, we got grant money and we got grant money. So the challenge is keeping track of it, reporting on it. In many ways, the grant committee, by being successful in some of these grants, has made more work, quite honestly, for the town administrator to do the reporting, quarterly reporting oftentimes, and certainly keeping track of the financial part at the accountant level. So it's been good, but it's also got a little bit of a downside, I think, in all honesty, that it creates more work in some ways. But we're not sad to have the money. So that's been good, I think. So I think it just shows that, a bunch of, interested people that are willing to do the research and put some creative writing skills together, and whatever, we can make a pretty good case for Southampton. So
Well, there's like two other things that that keep coming up that we're thinking about is the public safety complex, which
right.
And the future eventual senior center too. So just saying that we've always been looking for great opportunities to help support those initiatives. However, the safety complex just got a bunch of money, right? Got $1 million donation from a
No,
citizen.
well, no, that's just for the land acquisition.
Right, but that's I mean, I remember looking at the one stop, and one of the problems was we didn't have the land. It wasn't
Right.
shovel ready. It wasn't shovel
Correct.
ready.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No,
So
it,
once we have that kind of more shovel ready, or at least ready for permitting for the next process, like obviously we're gonna have to find grants to help
right.
with that
Yep.
too.
Yep, no, exactly. Yeah, we know whenever we've been trying to put in a couple of things, we put in some expressions of interest, as Kate mentioned, for this one-stop grant, and related to some potential architectural drawings and permitting for the future public safety complex and or the senior center, especially for the public safety complex. But because we didn't have a location, we didn't own any land, we were writing theoretically, so our application wasn't very strong. This year it should be a lot better.
Yeah.
I think because we have a location now at least. So this is I'll send around a couple things after the meeting here, but this is sort of a list that I've been trying to keep updated. I think it's fairly accurate, of grants that are probably of interest to us, some of which we've applied for and some we had never, but they could be of use to us. And this is whether they're federal or state, timing when applications are due. And again, some have an EOI, some of the federal ones have this expression of interest. That's why I had this question on this MVP one. And this because the state and everybody in the world at the federal level loves acronyms. Here's the real name of what these grants are. And you can go just plug in the name or go to mass.gov and plug in the name, and you can find information about a lot of these grants right there. So these are the ones we were talking about earlier. So this assistance to firefighters is coming up very soon. So we'll be definitely wanting to look at that with the chief. Chief Fasoli was on a minute ago. Scott, and gave us an update of what he was working on and a couple small ones he's applying for himself. The brick one we've never applied for. It's one we might take a look at a bit more. Again, a lot of these are kind of climate related, so it depends on whether we qualify. Land, water, and conservation, we had not applied for. We looked at it at one point in time, but we didn't have anything that really fit their criteria at the time. One Stop for Growth is definitely something we want to work on. Housing choice is one that is now part of the One Stop Grant. And I think that as we talk about affordable housing possibilities, whether those are studies or whatever, we definitely want to try and apply for that. We actually did get that grant. One of the very first grants we got $100,000 in late 21, I think. And we got it though for the housing choice grant was kind of amorphous in terms of its definitions. And we managed to put in something about a study, was it the study or maybe it was the acquisition of the right of way for the Greenway Trail. Anyway, we got $100,000 for it, but then the time ran out because we couldn't close the deal on getting the right of way acquired. It took over a year. It didn't happen before the paperwork came through with the railroad to actually acquire the right of way. So we lost that grant. But just to say, that's one under the name of housing choice you would never think would qualify. So sometimes the names are a little bit odd, and you really do have to look at just, what are they looking to fund before you can figure it out. Mass Trails is coming up in February as well. We'll definitely do that. And we work very closely with the Greenway Committee. In fact, they do, 90% of the writing, and we're just helping edit and clarify things. They've taken it upon themselves after we did the first couple. At the grant committee level, the Greenway Committee has really taken the lead on that. And so just to say in general for Pam and Bruce, we basically are here as a support committee. We're not here deciding, well, let's go do this without any consultation. So if there's something that comes up that looks like we might qualify for it, I usually shoot a message out to the department head and say, hey, is this of interest? Is this something you want to take a look at with us? We'll schedule a grant meeting if you want to do that. And so that's kind of how it works. So we don't just create some imaginary priorities ourselves, but we try to work obviously very closely with this. There was one recently, I think, for Randall that came out that was something to do with, again, stormwater kinds of issues, and I sent it out to him asking if it was anything that he was interested in, and he said it was basically mostly for technical assistance and not for equipment or construction, which is really what he was looking for. So he didn't think it was worth his time at this point in time. So that's the kind of dialogue that we have, and we just kind of try to be the facilitators as much as we can with the various department heads. The Raise one I mentioned just before. I'm going to skip community compact in a minute. Raise was this big federal one that we'd applied for with the Greenway. We didn't qualify before. Maybe as we get into something else with the Greenway, we might qualify for that. But right now, once we get through the whole actual feasibility design part, the real design of it, there is state money rather waiting for us in Boston for the actual construction of it. Some $16 million is waiting towards the construction of the Greenway once we get there. So we got, another year probably of hurdles to go through with DOT and whatever to get it fully ready. But we'll get there. We're getting there. The last one that's on here is the park grant, which doesn't come up until the summer. And this is one where we had applied and we were awarded a grant for you've probably heard about the splash pad or spray deck at Conant Park, plus an accessible walking path along the side from the library parking lot out to Route 10. So kind of on the back side of the tennis and pickleball court, making a walking path there, especially for seniors and folks with kids and strollers and whatever. There really isn't. It's really not a very accessible park. Oddly enough, there's a lot of grass, but it's not easy to move around if you've got some disability. So we had put that in. We had gotten the award, and we were having difficulty with the both the acquiring of equipment for it as well as just being sure with highway, water, health department whether or not the water discharge from the spray park was going to cause us problems, etc. So it took a bit longer. We did get the equipment in place, which is stored with Randall, I believe, right now. But the grant ran out before we were able to do anything more with it. And they were not willing to give us any extension. So some groups, Mass Trails, for example, has been very flexible, I think I would say, and really willing to work with us if we needed a month or so extension. Some of these other programs just don't. They have a hard stop and too bad kind of thing. So with that, Scott, you want to just jump back up on Community Compact? I know you mentioned some couple things in an email to me. We had this cybersecurity training and maybe the ADA accessibility one that you were going to look at again, but then these are two different ones. A Community Compact IT, a regional efficiency one, and then another municipal fiber one. And I think the municipal fiber one, as we're looking at maybe some other online permitting you were talking about with Art, that might be something that we could fund it maybe through a grant for a little bit rather than having to use town money, but it wouldn't be sustainable, obviously, beyond that. But anyway, just to say, there's a couple things coming up in January-ish, early part of the year. But if you know of anything more on the Community Compact stuff, feel free to just chip in right now.
Yeah. So the most recent ones for like the best practices that's been all the funds have been expended already.
Mhm.
The good news is the IT one isn't opening up until January 6th. So there's a lot of options for that. I've reached out to my contact, at the office. But there's also some rolling grants that he's encouraging us to apply for, similar to what we've gotten in the past, so that we can utilize those ASAP, and then we can go forward with the Community Compact IT grants once they open up in January for like some of the equipment and some of the software and things like that. The municipal fiber, I'm not 100% sure on right now. I have to look into that one a little bit more.
Okay.
Are you talking about funding it through the Community Compact?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read up on that too.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that are out there. So I think there's things, as Scott mentioned, there's a couple that are rolling. We had an award already for this cybersecurity training, which in many ways I think we were a little too early on. We got the award and it was basically just training. So it's training for anybody with a town of Southampton official address, basically, but mostly folks at town hall, but then other department heads and other committee and board heads that use the town email, just to be sure that we're not, we're more aware that we're aware of hacking and phishing and all those kinds of problems that are out there. And we weren't totally ready for it, I think, when we got it. And then obviously with the changeover of town administrators, it kind of fell through the cracks as well. But now that we are up and running and we have internet throughout town hall now, thanks Scott. We really are probably ready to take advantage of it now, more so than we were before. So there's a couple things like that. So I've been talking an awful lot. I have nothing else that I wanted to share with you all today, but I just would like to ask either Bruce or Pam or both of you if you've got any thoughts. Is this the kind of committee that you think you might be interested in and would feel like coming to a second meeting?
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I
give
am
me like
actually
5 minutes.
interested in this. My only
We'll go
concern
upstairs.
I have is I do work like Monday through Friday straight hours, so
Okay.
it might be a little hard depending on timing.
Okay. Yeah, both Kate, you work as well, so that's our challenge. Right now we've been trying to do daytime Zoom meetings. We haven't ever met in person, frankly. But
Okay.
but that's always a first. So yeah, we might have to figure out timing on that. When are you done work, Pam? What time?
I usually get out about 5 and I work up until
Okay. And that's Monday through Friday, huh?
Monday through
Yeah.
Friday.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And how about you, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm generally available on Mondays and Fridays. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm involved with grandchild care. Some of those mornings I might be available. Definitely in the afternoons I would not be. And then, yeah, I wonder what the best way for me to, and I'll have to go on the website and look at the different plans and just see where how to best get background knowledge to be able to be of assistance. Just in the knowledge that you have of all the different workings of the town and what's needed right now. I just have a knowledge deficit
You're not alone,
and
Bruce.
would need to come up to speed.
You know,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest, I knew very little before I joined this committee, and I go by the motto, fake it till you make it. Like I love sleuthing and finding information in our town plans, but I honestly can say that I probably before 2020 didn't like ever go on our town website and was pretty unfamiliar with these processes. Like I feel like going through each grant process has been very different, but it's basically like I think as long as you are good at finding information and can write persuasively about why you need something, it's telling a narrative. And everybody, what I'll say is everybody has different areas of comfort and different areas of expertise, and we do still rely on like that. I know Chris brought up that Brun grant or the Broom grant about pointing at the town hall. I knew nothing about that. Right? Like I'm a nurse, so I don't know that much about, filling in mortar on a town hall building. But there was somebody who, knew a little bit more about architecture that was pulled into the call that could speak to that. And Diana Fetterman, who was unfortunately had to, take a step aside to take care of family, but, knew a lot about what we should be focusing on for this particular grant, and actually said that we should consider focusing more on community benefit, like knew that that's what they were looking for in this grant. I guess I'll just say, like, I wouldn't hold yourself to expect that you're going to understand or know everything, because I don't think you have to. Like,
Yeah.
if we're working on the hazard mitigation plan, then we can go, you can go through that one plan and just to like read through it and familiarize yourself through it. Like you're not, I don't think you need to know everything from every plan. I can understand why that would sound like really overwhelming. Like before I joined this group, I never wrote a grant before. I liked writing and I like finding stuff on the internet and researching, and
Yeah.
I like getting the best part for me about being on the grant committee is that the worst outcome is that you don't get free money. Like
Yeah.
You know, like that's like literally, and this is just coming from somebody who, you know, it's like winning the lottery for your town every time you get a grant. It's really like, I just, you know, you're like, woohoo, bike path, like all these really cool things.
Yeah.
And that's why I've stuck with it. It's just because I really like seeing, like, I drive by the new sidewalk that's next to the cemetery every day when I go home. You know, it's like nice seeing the signs that are now at Norris School, because we got, you know, we got applied for a grant and got 2 new signs. And so I get excited when I drive by them, and it makes everybody slow down. You know, it's like little things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that like from my own experience, like I joined pretty blindly, and
Yep.
and it's been a small group, but I feel like it's better to try than to not try. And um yeah, I just want to like throw my personal, because I'm not you know, I work more than full time, and I have a 6-year-old. Like this is, you know, something that I've kind of just done for fun, I guess. But I actually am also on the board of health, and I like this way better. I mean, like, because it's really, yeah, the worst outcome is that you don't get free money.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
there's no risk really in throwing in your hat for a particular
Right.
grant.
Yeah. And I think thanks, Kate. That's a great
I
testimonial.
just
Thank you,
need to
that.
go, Chris. I
Okay.
gotta log off.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Right.
Oh my
So
God, do
just
I have another? I probably have another call
just
too.
very briefly, we got just 2 seconds. I'll just say that the impetus really for creating the committee was when I retired from my federal job, which was giving grants, not writing them, but giving. I was part of a foundation that was giving grants to farmers and women's groups in Africa, actually. So I was on the grant giving end. So I was reading grant applications and scoring and all that kind of stuff, and trying to see if this was a viable project that was sustainable and, you know, really met a community need kind of thing. So coming from that background, and when I retired and came back home, you know, I found that Southampton had a lot of things that they wanted to do, but everybody said, but we don't have the money for it. You know, there's no money out there. And it's like, guys, there is federal and state money floating everywhere. You just have to go look for it. And so I think that's what kind of made me start the committee, frankly, and keep it going. So I think that's still true. You know, we learn something new every grant round. And so I think as we decide, okay, we're going to work on grant X, then we all kind of dive in and look at that one specific one and read the background and understand, you know, what we need to do. And, you know, the way we usually do it, although I'm not the biggest fan of Google Docs, but Kate is the master of Google Docs. We sort of assign pieces. If there's a lot of narrative to do, we just say, okay, who wants to take this part? Who wants to take this part? And we kind of work to put it together. And then obviously we need to, at the end, kind of make sure that all of our writing style kind of makes sense to somebody, but trying to do it that way. So we work very collaboratively. And so, Pam, I wouldn't worry so much if sometimes I'm trying to think. I think it's going to be hard probably to meet on. We don't do any meetings on a weekend usually, so
There's
that's
no
a
way
tough
I can
one.
commit to that.
But it's one of those where we probably would still try to meet on a Zoom on a weekday. But there may be specific assignments we could give you to do more research kinds of stuff or something, you know, that didn't
Yeah, I
require.
do most of my stuff on the weekends and after hours, like the actual
Yeah.
work. Like aside from the meeting, anything that I do that's grant related, I don't do it at work. There's no, you know,
Yeah.
I work a day job as well.
Right.
But often it's like one or two, like everybody's contribution sometimes, like especially if we're working like collaboratively with the senior center, might be like 1 or 2 questions, right? So if everybody kind of takes a little piece of it, like for instance, a lot of grants you have to speak to, like Chris was mentioning, environmental justice. Like I might take that one question and figure out how to relate it to our surrounding communities, because we're not an environmental justice community, but I still have to figure out how, like, yeah, some of it's a little bit just like figuring out the best way to convince another person that you deserve what you're asking for, essentially.
Yeah.
Hey, just so you got a little background on me. So I moved out of town when I was in my when I turned 30. Lived in Chicopee for 20 years. Came back here recently. Okay. So I've seen the whole city dwelling, I guess is how you can look at it. What I do for work is I'm a referral specialist. So what I do is I take in requests for insurance companies to try to get authorizations for patients to get care. Also medications. So I do a lot of how do I want to say, read the chart, write it in, try to give them what they want in order to get the patient.
Exactly.
So,
That's exactly, I mean, that's basically like the insurance equivalent of grant writing, right?
Yeah, that's great. No, I think everybody's got, you don't have to be a grant writer. I mean, we've all got skills that we pull up on, and whether it's budgeting, whether it's something else, I don't know, it comes together. So I don't want to scare you away, but I just want to be honest that I think we probably would still try to meet by Zoom on a weekday, which may hamper you, but it doesn't mean that we can't find a role for you, Pam, if you're interested. So what I would like to suggest is, could we?
I could take a
Yeah.
lunch or something. And,
Well, maybe, yeah. If there was a break, I know, Kate, this is sometimes you do is sort of a lunch hour time. So, if we kept it on the early side of the afternoon, maybe that would work. I don't know. I'll see what we can do for our next meeting. If this is really one that's coming up on the 1st, the next Monday would be the 14th, which is actually, it's Columbus Day. So I don't know if anybody's around on Columbus Day. To meet, or we could push it off until the 21st.
I think if 21st is fine as long as
Yeah,
I could do 12 or 1 o'clock.
Okay, I will reach out and try to get some information on that whole HMP or MVP, whichever 2.0. And then if it looks like we really need to hustle and do something, I will send a note around. But let's go for the 21st, 12:30.
Works for me.
Try that. And maybe that, if that fits in, Pam, that would be good. And then, if you want to just, think about it, if you are interested in applying, just go to the town website on the volunteer page and just fill out the application to be on a committee. And then we just pick it up at select board meeting. So that's all you need to do.
Questions, like we always talk to each other. That's the other thing too. Like if there's something that I feel like I don't understand,
Yep.
there's always people that understand a process better than I do. So we,
Right.
We don't if you if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. If
Yep.
Yeah, I really do enjoy working with the different departments. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's
Oh.
great. Yeah.
Happy to venture in and see if I can help out.
All right.
I
Good.
love that.
Great. Well, I'll send around a couple of these things that we've shared today, just so you've got them on hand. And it'll come from my town of Southampton email. So just check your spam if you don't see it within the next 24 hours.
That's good.
I'll send around the MVP stuff. I'll pull it together as soon as I can.
Very good. No, thanks. All right. So let's have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 2:08.
All right. I'll second it. Let us call ourselves adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Nice
Appreciate
to meet
it.
you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.